Alrighty, guys. Welcome to tonight's charting session. Hopefully, everybody's doing well. Happy Tuesday. Let's jump in. Talk about bias today. I took one trade a little bit after the live session this morning, kind of going into lunch, I guess you could say. We'll go over that. Want to talk about bias. Ended up playing out beautifully. Talk about what? If I did not have why is there a gap? I guess that's just normal. Okay. Yeah, so let's jump in. So going into the morning, one thing that I wanted to pay attention to, and exactly what I ended up playing out, is I set my bias in the Discord going into the morning. Let me pull that up here. This was the picture that I wanted to see. So we had a Seek and Destroy profile. Again, looking at Seek and Destroy, if you guys haven't understood it yet or gotten to that point in the mentorship, you will. It's when we have Asia session consolidate. In London session, right when it opens, we end up recently going to take the high, takes the London high, comes down, takes the London low. We create a now London session high, a London session low. When New York opens, we sold off, took the London low. At this point in time, we expect us to sometime during the New York session go take the London high. Now, the bias in which this ended up being approved, right, and other things that ended up adding conviction to this, in which we expect the London high to get taken, is we had taken some form of sell side to the left of us. That recent low was taken. We were also in a bigger time frame imbalance in which we expected to reject. So there's a lot of things, again, that continue to add to this bias. And that's how we continue to form confidence when looking to see where the market is drawing towards, right? There's reasons in which we expect the market and the algorithm to hunt towards those areas of liquidity. So going into the morning was expecting to see buy side of the curve to work our way up to the London session. And our goal was to recognize exactly when that is, look for displacement, look for an entry. So market ended up opening. And in the morning, my goal was just to continue to watch and then wait for that displacement. Now, looking back, the entry would have been here. We ended up coming down, moved up, started to break through these highs, created a nice imbalance. Once we ended up coming down and sweeping this internal low and we had an SMT, this would have been the best possible long opportunity for me. Looking back, at the time, I just didn't have the conviction to take it. I wanted to see a little bit more displacement because at that time as well, we didn't really displace through a high yet. On the 5 minute, again, it was just kind of slow and choppy here. And then once we got this displacement move, it gave me more confidence to ending up to take the long. Now, we ended up coming up and tapping it here and ended up kind of taking it. But a lot of the times when we have that initial high, this becomes relative equal highs and we'll most likely go back to take it. And that's why I ended up taking a trade after here, is because we ended up coming up, creating relative equal highs, still a lot of resting liquidity there. Market ended up pulling back. Again, the reason I'm not taking it off this imbalance is because I have no clue if we want to dig into this imbalance. I have no clue if we want to dig back to equilibrium. I have to simply wait for a recent low to be taken and a turtle soup entry to form. Once we generate this liquidity down here, zooming in, we ended up to consolidate and slowly work our way back down. Once we ended up taking this low and I saw an initial reaction, I immediately jumped in long and rode this all the way up to go take out those relative equal highs. And ended up catching a nice little move. Traded low size, made around 1,500 on it. Nothing too crazy, but really nice entry. And I'm glad that I was able to take some sort of piece of the pie from this move since we initially missed out on this initial entry in the morning. But glad I took advantage of it. Did anybody else see this setup? Did anybody else take that trade? Signature profile is one of my favorite conditions to play out. Adds confidence for me for sure. I absolutely agree. It's one of my favorites to use. Nice. Looks great, Matthew. Lack of confidence to follow through. Seriously lower. Both are good entries. Both are good entries. And again, one thing I want you guys to keep in mind is taking an entry here doesn't necessarily mean that this is better than this. You do not need to catch this entire move. You don't need to catch this entire move. The goal is to simply win with good risk because you can always scale, right? I can make more money trading this setup than you can making this because it all has to do with scalability. Our goal is confidence and our goal is consistency. You do not need to hit home runs. You don't need to catch 100-point moves. All you need is a piece of the pie. It doesn't matter what your entry is, as long as you have a confident understanding of where the market is drawing towards and where you can get into the market. That is all that matters. So don't try to feel like one is better than the other. It's taking advantage of the draw on liquidity, taking advantage of the bias, and then structuring with good risk. Oh, like 17 points, incredibly good risk. That's all I needed. Took it a bit heavier since my stop was around 4 points, but that gave me 1100 on my eval and done. Nice. Love to hear. Had extremely lower size too because we had the SMT at the highs, but as you said, we expected to take out the high. Exactly. What percent of your full size would you trade today, considering no red from the news, all-time highs, no SMT at the high, larger time frame? The way that I structure my size all has to do with confidence. So the only reason I didn't take full size on this is because we were already up into this range, and I have more confidence taking it lower than I do higher, especially once technically it already got taken, so it was a little bit less conviction as well, and it's a little bit more risk for me at least. So it depends. Do I agree this is a great setup? Absolutely. It really honestly depends on the day because I can easily recognize my own emotion. There's days where I feel a lot more comfortable. There's days where I don't feel a lot more comfortable. And I know that the days where if I am less comfortable and I'm putting on more size, it is a likelier chance of me making a more emotional decision than it is if I was on a more comfortable day. So it really depends. Sometimes the days that I'm trading, because you have to realize as well, humans are always going to be emotional. You are an emotional creature. It will always happen. It's being able to, number one, solidify it as much as possible, suppress it as much as possible when you are trading. But when you can recognize it is when you have an advantage because it's the maturity to be able to recognize it and then make a decision off it. And I've gotten to the point in my trading where I just can easily do that without really thinking about it. It's more of how I react to it. So if I see a setup that I think looks good, but again, it's one of those days where it's like I don't really want to risk, I'm a little bit skeptical, whatever it is, I'll end up taking lower size. But there's also days where it's like, this is exactly what I want to see, exact confidence, and I'm going to put heavy size on it because I feel comfortable with doing so. So a lot of the time it's going to shift, right? And it all comes down to you to build the confidence and conviction to end up taking those setups over time. So after this high ended up getting taken, again, once the objective in the morning is taken and this London session ended up playing out and this entire seek and destroy model played out, once London session high gets taken, I'm not looking to trade anything after this. There could have been a possible long entry after this SMT here. But again, in my opinion, everything after this is always going to be lower probability. It's going to be less efficient price action. We want to catch it in this model because there's a reason for price to move, right? Here, we don't necessarily know. We don't have the confidence. Now, yes, did we draw towards this recent high? Yes, we draw towards the high. We ended up taking buy side. But this is the internal model that gives us confidence, right? The whole reason why we're taking the trade to begin with, right? The whole reason we're taking a trade here to begin with is because we know the algorithm is drawing towards these highs. After this high gets taken, we need more conviction, more structure, more reasoning for market to then move to then give us an understanding what the next draw on liquidity is. So our goal is to understand once this objective is taken, we need more structure to understand where the next draw on liquidity is. This is where we want to be trading. So after this gets taken, we end up continuing to run, ended up taking this recent high. And again, now continuously back at all-time highs. So tomorrow, looking at the 4 hour here, 4 hour fair value gap has continued to hold. I do want to pull up ES because I do not believe we have an SMT. I guess we do, but this will easily be broken through. ES looks extremely bullish. We have all of these highs starting to stack up. I am extremely bullish going into tomorrow. I think we're most likely going to have a big expansion move to the upside. And it honestly is probably going to be a straight up move. I do want to look at Forex Factory and see the news tomorrow. Do we have FOMC meeting minutes? Now, I don't believe Powell is speaking since it's just the minutes. So it's not anything honestly to worry about because it's not actually FOMC. One thing I want you guys to pay attention to going into tomorrow is now that we've had another expansion move and we are back at all-time highs, this is going to be the bigger time frame structure that we're going to play out, right? So now this high has been taken. There's a chance that we start to build structure here. Again, then start to displace the downside, then maybe rebalance to this area. But until that happens, we don't want to fight the trend, and we're extremely bullish, and our goal is to focus on the internal models because the bigger time frame hasn't given us that draw. So our goal is to stick to the 15-minute, the 1 hour, play that intraday bias like Seek and Destroy. That's why I think Seek and Destroy is one of the most powerful ways to build conviction because you trade it intraday. It's an intraday model. You know where the market's going intraday. You don't have to necessarily worry about the bigger time frame objective or the bigger time frame draw and liquidity. Now, it is important, right? The highest conviction setups and the times in which Seek and Destroy are going to play out the most efficiently is when you can align the bigger time frame draw and liquidity with the Search and Destroy draw and liquidity, right? Because let's say, for example, the bigger time frame is bullish, Seek and Destroy is bearish. We end up fighting that draw. Those are the likely times in which Seek and Destroy will end up failing. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well, right? But aligning Seek and Destroy with the bigger time frame objective is going to be the highest probability that you can get for a good trade. But now that we're back at all-time highs, we need a lot more structure to validate what we want to do. So we're very patient going into tomorrow. Let's go to the chart a little bit and talk about this. It always takes so slow when I'm using a Mac. Okay. First thing I want to draw in, big 4-hour imbalance just created. Want to see price rebalance. Look to see if some structure starts to form in here, as well as a 1 hour. Want to see what happens once we come down into this area and look to see the reaction. Want to see if we start to generate some form of liquidity in this area. But I would like to see something like this. An overnight session, honestly, I'm pretty bullish, but I would like to start to see something like this tomorrow and then just continue higher. This is honestly what I would expect to see going into tomorrow and probably Thursday as well, because nothing is bearish whatsoever. We are extremely bullish. There's no reason for us to be fighting the trend. Wait for it to align, wait for a bigger time frame to rebalance. Once we get into this imbalance, we can then look to see the reaction and to target these internal highs, right? So right now, let the market play out, build some structure in this area, wait for us to rebalance, and then look to see if we can continue towards the trend. Because right now, we're just going to continue to run higher. There's no reason for us to touch it. Let the market build more structure. It will tell us exactly what it wants to do, when it wants to do it. Let it be clear. Wait for it to be dumb clear. Do not take any trades until it is. So FOMC most of the time is when Powell and the Fed releases rates, interest rates. But minutes is pretty much, I honestly could not tell you what minutes is. Minutes is not the meeting. Minutes is not when Powell speaks, and it doesn't affect much. Like FOMC has a significant effect on the market. The minutes do not. And you can tell the difference because when we do have an actual FOMC, it will say that Powell is speaking on a Forex Factory. Yeah, I think it's just notes or like some sort of things that they release. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's not something you need to worry about. Now, I would watch it because it might inflict some sort of volatility in the market, but not nearly as much as what FOMC and when Powell speaks. All right, I want to take the time, the next 10, 15 minutes or so. Any trades that you guys have taken so far this week, Monday or Tuesday, that we haven't yet reviewed, I'd love to see them. Any questions that you guys have, any questions about trades, any questions about the mentorship videos, any questions about things you're struggling with, now is the time. Feel free. On the second turtle soup trade, what time frame did you enter on, or did you just slap the trade after the SMT? I slapped it right after that low got taken, so there was no SMT there. Draw this back in. Right here, there was not no SMT. There was not no SMT. There was a fair value gap here, but once this low gets taken, this is turtle soup, and I knew that there's no reason for price to go lower. Again, the times in which price will rebalance to equilibrium and the times in which we will not rebalance to equilibrium is when there's a turtle soup. The reason this does not dig down is because there is generated sell side here. Once this low gets taken, we simply stop out all the initial long traders and then continue the trend higher. We come down, take the low. Right when that low gets taken, I enter in long with a stop, and I ride towards the. My entry was literally right here. Now, there's two ways you can look to trade. Again, it depends, right? You can look to trade right when this got taken. I entered literally right here, or you can wait for move back and look for a PD array, downswing encroachment, or you can wait for a fair value gap to get created, like here. Take this as the entry. The SMT at highs when ES took London session high and NQ did not don't have context because it is not in favor of the draw, correct? No, that's not necessarily true. This has context, and the context played out, right? Now think about it this way. When a divergence in assets, when ES and NQ have a divergence, have an SMT, that SMT most of the time will play out to go target some sort of internal liquidity and then continue towards the external trend. ES takes as high, NQ does not. There is an SMT, right? With the bigger, like this, right? That high, right? We come back down. Well, technically there wasn't, because this high got taken, so that SMT was actually not even valid. But if there was an SMT, let's say this high wasn't taken, like this, and this was the SMT, right? The SMT will play out just to sweep whatever that internal liquidity is. But you wait for the reaction, because sometimes no. If the external draw is lower, right? If the external draw on the bigger time frame is lower, then this most likely happens. We run through this and we start to go towards the external draw, right? Because the SMT is marking the manipulation. If there's manipulation in an SMT that's not in favor of the draw, it is simply to rebalance price. Because what are the 3 things and 4 things that our markets are doing? Hunting liquidity, rebalancing inefficiencies, rebalancing equilibrium. When an SMT happens, that's against the external draw. We will rebalance, it'll play out, but once the internal draw is taken and we have some form of liquidity, we continue towards the external draw. Does that make sense? In the mentorship, you talk about external range and internal range liquidity. The rest of ICT community defines internal range as fair value gaps and external range as highs and lows. In the mentorship, it seems like internal is referred to as the swing highs and lows of the lower time frame, while external range is referred to as the long-term high low that forms on the boundaries of the range. Are these concepts tied to each other? Guess what? If you zoom out, think again, that is correct. That is correct. Both are correct. Because guess what? In internal range, a swing high, if you zoom out, it is a fair value gap. If you look at this low, if you zoom out, this will become a fair value gap. See? Internal range liquidity, this becomes a fair value gap. Internal range to external range. But when you zoom in, you see it more clearly. It is a swing low. Make sense? Do we respect SMTs as they come, or will, let's say, a larger time frame SMT, for example, have more influence, or is it just watch and play the trade from what you see as what they come? Exactly. Trade what you see. Don't trade what you think. Trade what you see. If there is an SMT and you say, oh my God, I think this SMT is going to hold, or you think it's going to go do this, wait for it to approve or validate whatever that bias is. For example, if there's an SMT and it's in favor of the draw liquidity, depending on if it's an entry model or not, you can take a trade based off of it. Or if it's on a bigger time frame, for example, when we had this SMT, where was it? This. Again, this is not in favor of the external draw. So what happens? We rebalance price to take sell side. What happens then? We continue towards the external draw. But watch to see the reaction of it. If you don't have confidence in what it's going to do, which you will over time, the more that you see it happen, the more that you'll be able to be like, oh, this is exactly going to happen because we're going here. But there's going to be times where it's going to be like, there's an SMT, but there's no reason for price to move. That's the biggest thing, right? If there's an SMT, question, okay, is there a reason for an SMT to be here? Is there a reason for price to have this happen? Is there a reason in the model for us to hunt some sort of opposing liquidity pool? Is it in favor of the internal draw? Is it in favor of the external draw? Is it in favor of order flow? If not, wait to see the reaction. If it is, you have confidence with it, use it as an entry. Do you use fair value gap indicator? I mean, use this indicator. No, you should never be using fair value gap indicators because fair value gaps do not mean anything without context. If you mark every single fair value gap on your chart, you will fucking die. Do not do not use a fair value gap indicator. All it's going to do is cloud your vision. Can you check this out? It was on ES. I saw it sold off to the inverse fair value gap, then displaced back up and made an SMT with soup, took it on eval. Let me see. Post a screenshot. What do you mean by context in fair value gap? Fair value gaps do not mean anything without context. If you were to go to this chart, how many fair value gaps do you see here? Let's draw in every single fair value gap that we see. Okay. Why does this fair value gap get ran through? Why does this fair value gap not get rebalanced to? Why does this to the left of us get ran through? Why does this fair value gap to the left of us not hold bullish? Why does this bearish fair value gap not hold bearish? It gets ran through. Fair value gaps do not mean anything without context as to why they should be doing what they should be doing. Why should this fair value gap get ran through? Because London high is taken. Why should this fair value gap get ran through? Because London high has been taken. Once price rebalances, why should this fair value gap get ran through? Because there's an SMT, right? But only then do we run through this imbalance when there is an SMT. Price comes down, forms an SMT here. Why is now all of a sudden we start running through them? Because now there's a reason for price to go higher. We've manipulated the lows. There's been some form of liquidity sweep on ES here. There's an SMT. There's a divergence in price. This then gets ran through. Without context, fair value gaps don't mean anything. Fair value gaps only are a use when there's context as to why they should be doing what they should be doing. When you look at every single fair value gap on your chart, it doesn't mean anything. You will not be successful just taking trades off of fair value gaps. Does that make sense? Yes, other factors as well, always, because those are more important. Fair value gap is a tool. Think about it that way. Fair value gap is just a tool. Took this long setup targeting external buy side on NQ yesterday, got stopped out, put my stop there believing it was a protected low. Where would you recommend to place it next time? Number one, I don't think that should have been an entry. Why? Because no low was taken to the left of you. This is too zoomed in. First of all, if this is on the 1 minute, bro, you are way too zoomed in. Way too zoomed in. There is a zero structure here. You're taking a trade off of a random fair value gap. There's no swing low that gets taken here. I wouldn't even take an entry here. I wouldn't even be taking an entry here, to be honest. The only entry, in my opinion, that I would be taking would be here. And this, the only reason why I would say this might be an entry is because we had displacement, had an internal swing low that got taken in the imbalance, which this becomes turtle soup, and then we continue towards the external draw. This would be really the only actual entry that's based off of an entry model that I would take. This you're too zoomed in. You're just taking off random for value without structure. How do we recognize if the point in the chart we consider to be a protected low? Because there's no reason for price to go lower. Think about it logically. Think about it. Why do markets move? Why is this not a protected low? Because there's a reason for price to go lower. Why is there a reason for price to go lower? Well, we haven't rebalanced equilibrium. There hasn't been some sort of swing low. Now, could we not go lower? Could we come down, take this low, and then instantly go take this high? Yes, that's what we did. But I can't take an entry off of that. It's not to say that the market can't do that. It's that I cannot take an entry off of it because there is still a reason. Price can do whatever it wants to do in that point. And if price can do whatever it wants to do, that means my bias isn't strong enough to be taking a trade. Why is this a protected low? Because this is turtle soup. There is no reason for price to go lower after we take this low. Why? Because why do markets move? Hunt liquidity, rebalance to inefficiencies, rebalance to equilibrium. We come down, we hunt sell side, we rebalance to the inefficiency, and there's still a reason for price to go higher. Once that happens, we now have the structure on the buy side to move back higher. Because what do we do internally on this end? We generate buy side. And this becomes market maker models inside of market maker models inside of market maker models. Because what does this come on the lower time frame? This is its own sell model, an own buy model. We work our way back down, we take the internal low, and we work our way back up. Why is this a protected low? Because there's no reason for price to go lower. Why? Because there's an SMT. Why? Because bullish order flow. And what are we doing on the way down? We're generating buy side liquidity. Here, all of these highs have resting areas of liquidity. So what happens? We create these orders for market to then run to the upside and run all of these buy stops. Because we continue to generate liquidity on the way to rebalance price, on the way to hunt liquidity, which is this low, which ES ends up taking, which has a divergence, which verifies that there is manipulation. Then we wait displacement, then we pull back, and then we run all this buy side. Same model on its own, too. Took that first turtle soup trade right there and took it specifically to the internal high because I wasn't confident we would go higher. I was confident it would be protected until the internal low was hit. But after that, could come to take the low. Exactly. And you knew exactly what you had. You had confidence that saying, hi, hey, I don't know if the market's going to continue because there is no reason for I don't know. And that's exactly how you should think. Because you don't know because the market hasn't validated it. That's when you can decide, okay, should I just leave a runner and I'll put my stop at break even? And then if the market does go, you take advantage of it, or you take what you know, right? Could you please give me a specific feedback? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? I would need to see more. I can't tell you from this. This doesn't tell me enough, and this doesn't tell me enough. Is the entry right here? Where is the entry on this time frame? Is it here? I need to see the bigger time frame as well. Where's the market drawing towards on the bigger time frame? I can't tell from this chart. For me to give you accurate feedback, I would need to see more. When would higher time frame bias go from bullish to bearish in this scenario of all-time highs? Seems like even if we drop, it could still be a rebalance to go higher. Great question. What would be the model that would approve bearish order flow and be bearish? Well, we'd have to zoom out and actually look at it. We can't be looking at that internal time frame. We have to be looking at something like this because that's exactly where we took the side, right? So for us to be bearish, we have to look at it like this. Buy side has been taken. What would I need to see for me to be bearish? I would need to see some sort of swing low getting displaced through, right? I would need to see displacement through a swing low here. That's why I said on the bigger time frame, we're building structure. That's why I said this week, be focused on the smaller time frame because the bigger time frame hasn't shown context yet. Does that make sense? Couldn't that still be going back to equilibrium to go higher and a higher time frame? Yes, but why do you care? It doesn't matter. I don't care if we rebalance here. I don't care if we rebalance here. My goal is to know when price is going to do it. I don't care to guess if we're going here first and if we're going all the way back down here. I know we're going here. If this would happen, I know for sure we go here. I don't know for sure we go here because just this move alone doesn't tell me that. Because guess what? If I zoom out again, this is just to generate buy. Oh, we're getting into it now. We're getting into it now. Because what is this on a bigger time frame? This on a bigger time frame is just to generate more buy side or just to generate more sell side. So now what would I need to see for me to be even more bearish? This becomes my swing low. This becomes my swing low. For me to be bearish, this low would have to get displaced through. So I don't care if that happens until it does happen because I don't know the bias until it happens. What I do know is that if this were to happen, we would rebalance. Do I know we're going to go all the way back to sell side? No, because currently there's no reason for us to go to there, right? Why is there no reason for us to go back to this low? Because this low is taken. This low right here is taken, becomes a protected low. So until we want to continue to structure, or until we want to have a structural shift to the downside, I don't know we want to go here until it happens. Meaning I have to pay attention to the internal order flow. Got you. Any other questions? Last question. Do you have more trust in higher time frame market maker buy model than market maker sell model? Because indices are more so bullish than bearish. If we are in a bullish trend, then yes. If we zoom out and we look at the last 3 months, we are extremely bullish. So yes, I favor buy models over sell models. What are times in which I favor sell models over buy models? When there is a reason for price to go lower. Do I favor buy models? Yes. Do I favor sell models? Yes. Because there is a reason and a time when time and price aligns, you decide what it is. You are simply an observer. It's not that you prefer buy or sell. You are simply told what to trade based off of what the market tells you. Right now, there is no reason for me to be in favor of a market maker sell model because there's no reason for price to redistribute yet. We're extremely bullish. What has to happen first has not happened for me to be bearish. What has to happen for me to be bearish? We have to create structure and displace through whatever swing low here is here on a bigger time frame. So if I don't have an overall bearish bias on a bigger time frame, I'm going to be bullish. And for me to have a bigger time frame bias, for me to align to a lower time frame, my bigger time frame then gets moved from a 4 hour to a daily to then a 1 hour to a 15 minute. That's why I say focus on the 1 hour, 15 minute. This becomes my bigger time frame bias, and then I can zoom into a 5 minute and a 1 minute to align that bigger time frame bias with the trade that I can take intraday. Because I don't know what the daily and the weekly want to do, and there's no reason for me to care about it when it wants to. Does that make sense? Got you. All right, guys. That is all I have for you guys tonight. Hopefully you got your answers or your questions answered. You learned something. Great day today. Took a nice trade in the PM. It wasn't on the live, unfortunately, so I couldn't trade it with you guys, but it was still nice. Happened. We'll see what we end up getting tomorrow. Get some rest. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys.